This week, it's an all-new Critiquing Comics, where we look at comics submitted to us by their creators, and we really struck gold this time. God Summoner by Zogaris and Manos Laouvardos is a story in the fantasy genre, and Jason and I weren't sure we'd last 10 pages into it. But good comics are good comics, and this is a well-written story with beautiful black and white art that drew us both in. The Keluarga Cable Ship Company by Mereida Fajardo is a story of a father and son with communication problems and a ship that lays down undersea cable through which, communication flows, or doesn't flow. But what makes the book stand out is its very unusual format that shows great thought and planning on the author's part. So we hope you'll stick around to hear about both of these cool comics. First, I'd like to thank our patrons for helping to keep the show going. You can pitch in by pledging at least $2 a month at patreon.com/deconcomics. This is Tim.
This is Jason.
This is Adam.
And this is Critiquing Comics. Welcome to Critiquing Comics. This is Tim in Tokyo. I'm talking now with Jason in Portland, where it's very, very hot.
Too hot for redheads, Tim.
Just like soaks up all the heat.
I can get a sunburn from the moon. Like, my people were not built for this.
I see.
My people are supposed to be like in the rain and in a tavern.
Right. Okay, so we are talking about God Summoner, written by Zogaris and art by Manos Laouvardos. And so going into this, I mean, I wasn't terribly excited about the genre because I'm not really into fantasy. Although luckily this has no elves. I was happy about that. I feel this, like all fantasy stories feel kind of the same to me. Yeah, as if there's great variety in superhero stories. And even just describing the story, it comes off sounding a bit hackneyed, like an oppressed land where rulers trying to find the one who's going to deliver everybody in order to kill her, blah, blah, blah. But I read this and I was like, oh, okay, this is pretty good.
I had the exact same experience. I was like, God Summoner. Okay, I'm not really into religious overtones. And then I was like, first of all, I am by page 3. I think it was page 3. This thing opens up with a map.
Mm-hmm.
And I think,
lots of world building.
Well, page 4 is just a map and it's named everything. And I'm like, okay, cool. That's not too bad. And then I get to page 5 and I go, oh no. Oh no. They have called out regions of the map, and then they've called out the town name, and then there's like a little biography of what's going on in that town and why it's important. Mm-hmm. And then on page 6 it continues, and I'm like, I hate this.
I don't even think I read those pages.
But here's the thing. I will say this. When you get to the end, you don't have to have read them.
No.
Because the story works excellently from beginning to end. So by putting this here at the beginning, it felt like homework. And not only that, but it actually spoiled a couple of moments later in the story. There's I'm not spoiling this because it's on page 7 so it's really probably page 5 of the book. There's a town that's in the handprint of an old god on the ground.
Right.
And to me, that was such a beautiful visual moment when I got to it in the story, but it was undercut by them calling it out here at the beginning.
Yeah,
you didn't have to.
I definitely skipped these pages. When I got to that point in the story, that was the first I knew about the handprint city.
Good, that's where you should.
Yeah.
For me, a story works. It should work as its own as a story. And I'm here to say this story actually really, really does work. This is actually a really highly well done and illustrated story. I'm just begging the creators. I am begging anyone who does fantasy to do people like Tim and I a favor and don't drop an almanac at the beginning of your story, because it feels immediately, I'm like, it's impenetrable. It's homework. Mm-hmm. Do you remember when the original Dune, David Lynch's Dune, was in theaters, and the studio has so little like faith in the project that they had people handed out a pamphlet as they walked into the theater breaking down like the land and like trying to define all these terms because they were so scared of people not getting the movie, which you're never going to get anything David Lynch he's never going to make it easy for you. That's how I felt here. I was like, oh, these these creators don't have faith that I'm going to pick all this up in the story. And I understand, like, if you're a fantasy person, you're really proud of the world that you made.
Yeah.
So if you want to do this, do it incrementally, like in a video game. Like you would go to a certain town in a video game and they would open that map up and you would learn about it then. Mm-hmm. I think you could have these pieces of the map as chapter breaks as we're getting closer or after we've been to the place, even better after we've been there, just to cement what we've read. But don't spoil things that are coming up in this story here at the beginning. That's my rant. That was my number one problem with this book. And I got to page 5 and I almost emailed you and being like, you know what, man, I can't do it. Something came up because I was like, oh no, I am not.
We got too many dogs to walk.
It's like really dense information that just grinds my enjoyment to a halt, and it's like a barrier for me. Now, maybe fantasy people completely will disagree with that, but I think my recommendation is you start this book on page 8, chapter 1.
Yeah, for sure.
Start there, because once I saw the first page of artwork, I was like, oh, this is really good. Even if the story's terrible, which it's not, I can go with this. But like you, fantasy is not my genre. I hear the One, I hear the Realm, and I'm like, my eyes glaze over. I'm like, get to it.
Yeah.
What do you got? But thankfully, as you said, there is so much good here that I read the entire thing.
Me too.
In one sitting. I couldn't put it down. Yeah, I was really captivated. So that's my rant. I'll let you continue.
Okay. Well, yeah, so I feel like I just need to rave about the art. I mean, and it's black and white. He's not leaning on color at all here. But, there was never a time when I said, what's going on in this panel? And it's all just rendered so nicely in black and white. I just enjoy looking at the art, even if I'm not reading the story.
It's so beautifully done. Like this brushwork is just really stellar. The balance of blacks and whites, the hash marks, just the dynamic posing of all of it is so beautifully done that you could probably read this without looking at the words, and the visuals are so strong, they're going to carry everything. The design work is great. The characters are great. It just really, like you, I saw the artwork and I was like, this will, no matter what's going on, this will carry me through. So it's interesting you said the writer. He's credited himself as the creator.
Yeah.
So there's an illustrator and then there's a creator, which is not really typical of comic books, comic book culture. But again, this might not be English might not be the first language of these creators.
Yeah, I think they might both be Greek.
Yeah, I would guess, but I don't want to guess. Yeah. So that's interesting. Which made me think. Typically, in the comic culture, we call ourselves writers or artists or whatever. I was wondering, when I was reading this, I often thought, this kind of does feel like an animated screenplay that might have been turned into a comic book, but it was done very well. It's like not a slight at all. Often when I'm reading something, I'm like, this feels like a failed movie that they turned into a comic book. These people obviously have a deep love of comic books, but it does feel occasionally like this was meant to be an animated film first. And it's not a disservice. It's not a slight to say that. Once you get into the story, it's very classical, almost like 80s animation. But
yeah, I guess
there's some Miyazaki too, sort of like this otherworldliness that they go to.
Yeah. But yeah, I guess I'll read any genre if it's done well. I mean, it doesn't matter what genre it is if it's really well done, and this definitely is.
Yeah, I agree.
The only slight complaint I had was, I don't want to spoil this, there was a certain character who many, many pages before it happened, I thought, he's going to die. Might as well have been wearing a red shirt,
Yeah, but I thought there was going to be like a one obvious twist coming that actually never came. And I'll just spoil it here at the beginning. Like, there's a dead mom in the beginning. when they say the mom, there's a missing mother. And anytime there's a missing character that these characters, they talk around and they talk about, I always think that character is going to show back up at some point. That's like,
but you were dead.
Yeah, this is Darth Vader. I was like, okay, they're going to do the Darth Vader. Nope, they didn't. They actually did not.
Or like the woman in the other world turns out to be her mom. No, that's not what happened.
Tim, that's exactly where I'm like, I know where this is going. Nope, I didn't. I was wrong. So the storytelling is pretty fresh. I have one more ding before I forget, because this book is so beautiful to look at. The character work is really strong with all the characters, not just visually, but the way they're written. They'll add new characters, and I never feel like it's a burden or it's too much. Sometimes it's like a screenwriting trope is like you just keep consolidating characters so the cast is really thin. No, they continue to build out. This world feels lived in, and as a non-fantasy person, I was swept up in this ride 100%. It was really, really well done.
Yeah.
Here is my gripe, and maybe this is a translation issue. The word infidels appears way too much. Like, I think there is this evil queen type character, and everyone in opposition to her is called an infidel. And I'm seeing it now as I scroll through. It's like almost every other page the word pops up. Sometimes multiple pages in a row. It's like, you're an infidel. Here's some other infidels. Have you met the infidels? Here's a couple of infidels. At one point, they're referred to as traitors, and I was like, yes, that's what you need to do. They can't be called just the infidels every time. If I had access to the script, I would do a word search and be like, how many times is that word in here? And really, that's my biggest complaint in this piece. I did catch, because I have to point it out, there were a couple of uppercase I's in the middle of words. But I think probably, they probably lettered it themselves.
So serifed eyes that shouldn't have been. Oh yeah, I'm noticing here on page 39 in the word earlier, the I has serifs.
Yeah, yes, yeah, I'm looking at that page too. But look at that next panel. Look at that girl's face and her eyes.
Yeah,
and the brushwork on her hair and all of it is just so. I love when you can just look at the illustration of a character and read so many different emotions into their body language and facial grammar. Really, really well done. Even, there's certain X-Men vibes to this where, like, okay, you're going to have people, like, blasting things at each other. They still manage to make it, like, interesting. Even though I've seen it, like, so many times. Just, like, putting the camera in interesting places, like, in the backside of a cabinet, so when they open it, the light floods. Just really, like, I don't miss color in here at all.
No.
Yeah. It's so well done. I wouldn't want color here. I just want to look at this brushwork. I want to look at this line work. It's just amazing. So those are my 2.5 complaints. Okay. The serifs in the eyes, the word infidel is used way too much, and get rid of that map. Just skip the map.
Yeah, skip the world building. Yeah. Build the world in the story rather than before it.
Yeah, you don't need it. It detracts more than it gives you something. Yes.
So this girl's name is Adelise? I'd never heard that name before. And first I was reading it as Adelice. And like, no, and then she has lice in her name. I don't think that's what it's supposed to be. Maybe it's Adelise. But
I was just calling her Addie in my mind. I gave her a nickname. Because no one says... everyone does call her Adelise. And it is strange that no one has, like, a nickname for her.
Yeah, not even her dad.
Yeah, her dad is like the full, good night, Adelise. One of the things I do with my students is I have them like take a character's name and say, okay, how would like an intimate say it? How would their family say it? How would their enemies say it? Like you and I, like throughout the day, I get called Jason or Jay or Mac, or my wife calls me Mackie. Other comic book people might call me J Mac. Justin Hall, that comic book creator, he calls me Mac Daddy. Like I get called many different things, but it's all like it gives you context that tells you of the relationship between people, right? Like my students don't call me Mac Daddy. That's not the relationship we have,
no.
Right? But like my family doesn't call me that. They call me Jay, which are the only people in the world that call me Jay. So how you use someone's name and how you know that can give you a lot of context. So yeah, it did feel a little bit stiff that everyone calls her by her full name, Adelise, because I have a niece named Madeline, and I call her Maddie. She hates it, but I love it. So.
I'm looking at the expression on her face on page 43, where she's shocked at what she found in the book, and it's just, yeah, he really gets the facial expressions good.
It's masterful, right? It's just, yeah, we're looking at a book, we're looking at her eyes, we're looking back at the book, and then she slams the book and she's looking away. And then when she runs out of the house, there's like this nice little tilt to it, this slight Dutch angle. She's running out. Like it's just such good storytelling choices here, just from top to bottom. I love this artist. Like, I'm going to look for what else they did, what else they've done. On the end of page 45, there's this great scene of her at her mother's grave. And there's this really artistic, like the leaves are sort of falling off the edge of the page, and your eye line knows exactly where to go. If you were looking at this in print, the shape of the tree, the negative space between the ground, the tree, and her, it would just pull your eye right through it. And those leaves dusting off to the right just really just make that moment sing. I can't say enough good things about this artist.
Yeah. One of my favorite parts, and I assumed that in print book this would be a spread. In the PDF, it was a page turn, but I don't think that's how it's meant. Where when she is dragged into the other world through the mirror, and her dad is reaching out towards the mirror on one full page panel, and then on the opposite page, she's reaching out towards the mirror as she's being dragged away. It's just really, really works. So much to look at in these two panels. These two pages, so much, especially in hers, because there's this burning wreckage in the background, and and he gets the facial expressions really good, and just the concept of it I really liked. The facing pages, reaching out to each other through this mirror.
That's an excellent catch. I loved both those illustrations. It hadn't occurred to me, but you're right. They would 100% be a spread. That's a double page splash. And the balance of blacks, like the one is mostly a black background with the white bursting in, whereas the other one is a white background with the black clouds coming in. So it's such a nice dichotomy and balance that they have there. Yeah, that would look great in print.
Damn, it's 62 and 63, so that would make them facing. Yeah.
Well, I think the cover is also in here too, isn't it? It throws it off a bit. I think, it's hard to do the math on this because I think they've united some of the other double page spreads, and you don't count the cover and the interior cover.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Well, if you haven't printed it yet, make sure those are facing pages, guys.
I'm sure they have. Yeah, I mean, I want to see what else this artist has done, because they've made me a fan of something I did not think I'd be a fan of. I thought I would do the bare minimum on this, like Get Out. But it's really, really beautiful. And the story is not cut and paste fantasy that I thought it was based on that opening monologue from the witch.
No elves, no dragons.
No elves, no dragons, no plucky sidekicks. There's plucky characters, but I honestly felt like everybody was in danger. I felt like there were real stakes. I was scared of the villain. I thought the villain was terrifying. Yeah. And it's just staged so well. So, yeah, if anyone's still listening, high recommend for God Summoner, especially if you're not a fantasy person, because this is not the same old story that you've read over and over again, and it's so well told that I couldn't put it down. And I'm a big old fantasy crabapple. Really am. Yeah, just skip that map at the beginning.
Yeah. So both of us were pleasantly surprised by this.
Yeah, keep it coming. So this says 2023. I'm going to look up what they've done since. Yeah, see this page where the handprint is in the city? Like, it's so beautiful. You want to see that for the first time in the context of a story. It's like watching a trailer for a movie. Like, it's always a bummer when you're watching the movie and you're like, oh, I know what they're doing because I saw it in the trailer. I know where they're going with this, which is why I try to avoid trailers for movies that I know I'm going to see. Anything horror. And yeah, they made me like something I never thought I would like.
Looks like they've got a Kickstarter going on right now. Well, okay, no, it says late backers PM here. Okay, so it looks like they finished this, but yeah, they went way over their goal. They asked
Good.
for 3,000 and they got over 13,000. It's giving me Canadian dollars for some reason, but anyway, they went like several times higher than their goal. So,
As they should, And it sounds like they were doing this in installments, which I am now a converter to. I used to always just want to do right to the graphic novel, but it's so hard to fund, and it's such a long, stressful workload for the team that now I'm back to doing issues and just daisy chaining it until I can get to the graphic novel. And it sounds like it's also a good way to build an audience, and it's a good way to stay in front of an audience longer, as opposed to me like disappearing for a year while I work on the thing and come back. I think I'm a big fan now of doing the issues, keeping the audience warm.
mm-hmm.
And for something like this is so good. I would have confidence that every chapter is going to build on the previous just by word of mouth. Like, you might back something and really not know what you've backed and sort of forget about it until you get a package in the mail. And then you're like, oh shit, this is really good. I have to tell at least 3 people. Right. Whereas if you're like, it's fine, you might put it in a pile of books and just actually never read it. Like, I hate to say this, but I do have a pile of books that I don't know that I'll get to in my lifetime.
Yeah.
But thank you to everyone who sent me one.
You
know what's funny is I was reading like comics, Marvel comics in the Marvel app, and then I was like, I have to read that fantasy thing. I hope I can get through the opening. And I was like, you know what? This art is better than everything I just read from Marvel. Whatever I just read, I was like, like the art was whatever. Sometimes it's a little sketchy. Sometimes it's a little, it met a deadline. It was deadline specific art. For a deadline, it was great. But I was like, this is better than anything I just read this week from Marvel Comics. So I don't know if that means anything to the creative team, but you are working at a high professional level.
Yeah. I see. Yeah, they are both Greek natives who are living in Vancouver now. That's why it's giving me Canadian dollars.
Oh,
So
good for them.
Yeah.
Good for them. Well, this is a team to watch out for. They're on my radar. I'm going to follow what they do next. And they work together really well, too, as a team.
Yeah.
If this was a screenplay first, I think they did a really good job of not making it feel like they wanted to make a movie. It feels like they wanted to make a really good comic book. It's just like the storyline. Every now and then, I felt like there was a couple things going on in a panel at once, and that's typical of animation writers. Sometimes the animation, because in my school there's an animation department, and sometimes when those students write comic books, they will overload what happens in a panel. Like at the end of page 118 here, the bad guy has grabbed her by the ankle and pulled her down, and in the background, her accomplice is turning around, and it's just like there's a lot of little things going on in one static image, and none of it was bad. It all read well, especially in the action scenes, but it felt like that's how animators write comic books. And if that's true, they did a really good job of transitioning to this medium, better than most. And you always know, like, when a novelist writes a comic book, it's just going to be sluggish. It's going to be overwritten. Like, when writers from other mediums come to comic books, they have like these little telltale signs often.
His bio on Kickstarter says his passion for storytelling soon grew to a career in the form of graphic design and screenwriting. Okay. So
maybe I'm wrong.
Well, screenwriting. So maybe he doesn't say anything about animation. So, but maybe he has.
Right, and that's okay. You know what? A lot of screenwriters write bad comic books. This guy didn't. This guy wrote a really good one.
Yeah. So I mean, it looks like from his bio, he's been making comics, since he was a kid.
Oh, right on.
So,
yeah, he doesn't. Let me put it this way: he doesn't feel like a tourist here. Neither of them feel like tourists.
No, absolutely.
Yeah. So it was not a slight. I just felt there were some screenplay fingerprints on this.
You want to say anything about your latest?
Oh, yeah. I make comic books, too. I have a Kickstarter that just ended called Phantom Limbs. But some of the reward tiers are still open until I ship the book out in about a month. So if you want to get in on that, it's a standalone 24-page comic about a doctor. He's about to perform the most important procedure of his career, and he realizes he suddenly knows nothing about medicine. His medical talent has been stolen from him by a very unique thief. And it may or may not be talking about issues facing artists in the world today. So yeah, if you're interested in a macabre, done-in-one landscape story, then check out Phantom Limbs by myself and Alberto Masiagi and Sonia Harris. Thanks for reminding me, Tim.
Sure.
I was so gobsmacked
That's what
by this
hosts are
comic.
for.
I forgot. I was so blown away by this comic, I forgot I made comics too.
Well, and you were mentioning you're doing things in issues. Yeah, this is chapter 1 of a longer story.
Tim, you're on it today. Like my mouth just moves, and like an hour later, I'm like, I don't know, what did I say?
Yeah, so you sent me PDF of this. I read it. Yeah, it was good. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing more of that as well.
Thank you. Yeah, the next one's written. It's also a downer, and I just can't wait to make people feel bad. So if you're feeling too good about things, come to me.
Yeah, he'll depress you right off, just like you want.
Yeah. I'll get you right back on those antidepressants. All right. Well, God Summoner. What a nice surprise.
Yeah, for sure. Check the show notes for links to more information on God Summoner. Coming up, the Keluarga Cable Ship Company, a comic with an interesting story but a fascinating format, after this. This podcast is part of the Deconstructing Comics Network, where we're grateful to our supporters on Patreon. Patrons get exclusive extra content. Pledge $2 a month or more and get Batman 66 podcast Bat Bits, where we've recently gone over an early draft of Rick Vollard's script for As the Bookworm Turns, and we'll be digging into a variety of documents from the files of William Dozier, producer of Batman and the Green Hornet, including his correspondence with Bruce Lee and more Season 1 Batman scripts. At $4 a month, you also get our monthly show Silver Age Batman, where I'm moving through the book Batman in the 50s issue by issue with a rotating second chair of Paul, Emmett, Patrick, or Kumar. Follow our Patreon for free and you can hear the first 2 episodes of both Bat Bits and Silver Age Batman. Check it out at patreon.com/deconcomics, and thanks for your support.
You like cheap comic books, right? Well, I'm Professor Allen, and I talk about cheap comic books on the Quarterbin Podcast. In every episode, I'll dissect a single comic from my collection, as long as I paid no more than 25 cents for the issue. Forget about $4 new comics that you can read in 4 minutes, or crossover events that can cost $100 to collect. Join me in the Quarterbin, where even bad comics are a bargain, and good ones are a steal. The Quarterbin Podcast is part of the Relatively Geeky Podcast Network. Visit us at relativelygeekypodcast.blogspot.com or search Relatively Geeky or Quarterbin Podcast in iTunes. I guarantee it'll be worth every penny.
All right, now I am with Adam down in Nagoya. How you doing?
I'm doing all right, Tim. It's nice and hot and humid, like I was going to say clam bake. That's not right. Like a steamed clams. I don't know. Steamed hams.
The steam bath, yeah. Okay, so our comic this time is the Keluarga Cable Ship Company by, see if I can pronounce this, Mereida Fajardo.
Yeah, probably. I'm guessing.
Probably.
I should know this because I'm, quarter Filipino. I should be able to speak all of these or pronounce all these names perfectly, but I'm just going to say that you got it right.
Yeah, judging from the story, she seems to have a Philippine background, but I did a little poking around. I found that her citizenship is British and also German.
Well, so there's a very high chance that she's part of the Filipino diaspora because, in the 70s when Marcos was in charge, that was the chief export of the Philippines was labor. So they are everywhere in the world.
Yeah, and I found out, this is off the topic kind of, but in 2020, she and a friend went to Peru for a gap year, and they were out in the mountains, and when they got cell service again, they found out that because of COVID, the military had stopped all the flights, and they couldn't get out for a while. I don't know how long they were there after that, but.
So, Tim, do you always do this much diligence, researching the artists for these books? Because that's
not always
pretty deep.
Well, when I recorded the first half with Jason, I realized, I just read the story. I didn't do anything else. So for this one, I did a little bit more Googling, and happened across that. There was a story on the Daily Mail website about her and her friend in Peru.
Okay. Yeah. Well, maybe that'll be a future comic by her.
Yeah, possibly.
I will say, so now we were talking about where her origins are, and I don't know the answer to that, but there's definitely, whether or not she is from the Philippines or has lived in the Philippines, she definitely has a very firm grasp on Filipino culture. There's a part in the story where somebody calls another person kuya, which is a very Filipino thing to say. It means older brother, but you say it to anybody who's slightly older than you. And it's used in a very natural way. And so I do think there is definitely at least some kind of connection to the Filipino roots.
Okay. Yeah, I missed that entirely. I don't even know where that is in the story.
And I would tell you a page number, except this doesn't have any. So.
Yeah, well, we're bearing the lead because this comic has a really unusual format. Apparently only available digitally. In fact, okay, here's something else from my research. It's apparently only available during the month of July. Sorry, where I lost my tab here. Is this
so
it? Come on,
it's like the comic version of Brigadoon. It only appears once every 200 years or something like that.
Okay, so the LD Comics Fair, ldcomicsfair.com, online throughout July, and her comic, this comic, and a bunch of other comics are available there, but I guess after July, it's all going away, and you can't buy it anymore. So so if this sounds interesting when we talk about it, you might want to rush to ldcomicsfair.com.
Yeah, time is ticking. When this comes out, you'll only have a few days left to
you have a week and a bit. So yeah, I'm glad this one isn't getting recorded a month in advance.
Right.
But so, okay, so it's only digital because I don't know how they would print it. It's 3 parallel columns of panels. And so they're not just 3 long panels. They're broken up into panels. You can read it on Webtoon if it was there. I don't know that it is, but and the 3 parallel columns are, so it's a father and son story. So the first column is following the son's point of view, and he's an adult. And then the middle column is the father's point of view. And so sometimes they're having a conversation across columns.
Right. And
then the third column, it's nothing at first, and then it turns into a flashback.
Right. Yeah, and I do like how they bridge the two, because it does tell you in the beginning you can read it however you want. You can go down one and then go and read the second one and then go and read the third one, or you can read them all at the same time. But when you actually start reading it, at first, that's how I was inclined to read it, was read the first bit first because it had the most text.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just going to do that and read each column one after another. But then it sort of, a word balloon actually quite literally pulls your eye into the center. And then you're kind of in there for a moment. And then the third column is basically, for a lot of the book, is kind of just, I don't know, expositions, or not even exposition. It's just scenery.
Scene setting, out in the ocean, just clouds and waves and seagulls.
Exactly. But when it does have that flashback, it's very interesting because the flashback is, it becomes the main part of the story for that little bit of it. So at first I was worried that I wouldn't know how to read it. And I as I was going through it, I was like, I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to follow this, but it does become very intuitive as you go. It pulls your eyes in the right direction so that it doesn't really matter if you're missing something in one panel, so.
I don't. It was kind of freaking me out. I never did quite figure out which way to read it. Well, the first time I read it, I had it on my phone, and I was going down one column and the next column, and then later when I looked at it on my computer, I kind of grasped it a little better. There was a lot going on across columns.
Yeah, I will say it's much too small to read on your phone. And actually, even on your computer, the words are pretty small. So it's not super easy to read all of the word balls.
I had to zoom way in on my phone. Because on my phone, something about the shape of the page, because it's so long, it was making it all just really tiny on my phone. I had to, take my fingers and zoom in, zoom in, zoom in, zoom in.
Yeah. But even on my computer, I was reading it at like 175% or something like that. So, but yeah, it's a really, really unique format. It takes the endless scroll format, which was kind of made popular by places like Webtoon and those Korean manhwa sites, but separating across 3 panels that are going simultaneously is something that I've never seen before. And it's really experimental. And I think it shows a lot of kind of mastery of the craft of comics storytelling, because that would be a really hard thing. It's a really hard thing to pull off, and it's a very easy thing to mess up badly. And I don't think that she messed up. I think that it is, like I said, quite intuitive. And the story itself, there's never any, I might be jumping ahead here, but there's never any point where the author is beating you over the head and saying things. There's no big text boxes explaining background or everything that you get from the story is all in the subtext, because the fact that the father and the son are kind of estranged and the reason why that happened and all of these things is told through the storytelling and never directly. Nobody ever makes a flat, like a straight up comment where they're saying, I'm mad at you because of this, or you know what I mean? So
yeah, or explaining something to the audience that the listener would already know.
Right. There's none of those shortcuts or conceits. And so I think that it's expertly told as a story. It couldn't be done in another format than comics, actually. And
oh yeah, how would you do this on film?
Right, exactly. And it because it's done so visually, there's a lot of comics where I read them like, oh, that could be a book, or that could be, a YouTube video or something. But this one, it has to be a comic, and it has to be this format to do it. And I think it's pulled off very, very well.
Yeah, I suppose if you did it, well, it wouldn't work. I mean, you could have like 3 different projectors running, but you need time to soak up what you're looking at. And, if you had 3 projectors running, you'd miss a lot.
Exactly.
So
this one makes you slow down and take it at a different pace. And it lets you have to have the comics medium to be able to go back and check on what it was in a previous, in a different column, maybe things like that. So it's a really, really interesting kind of method of controlling time, controlling actually how long the reader spends on the page, but also like the flow of time in the story. All of it is just, I can tell that a lot of thought went into the planning of the book, let alone the actual execution of it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's a short read, but yeah, it must have taken as long as a thick graphic novel to plan it all out.
Yeah, for sure. You're right. It's a very quick read, but I do think it invites you to go back and look at it again as well.
You kind of have to read it several times, I think.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think as far as the format goes, it's really, really nice. It's beautiful. I think it's a interesting like I said, an interesting take on comics that I haven't seen before, and it was well done, which is a very rare thing for somebody to swing and hit a home run on their first try. So,
So what could we say about the story? So it's on this cable ship of the title. They lay undersea cable. It's just, and you said this has something to do with your job, actually. Some relationship.
Yeah, did I mention that?
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, that's in my notes that I was going to bring it up on the show. So my job is I make equipment for locating and detecting underground cables, not undersea, but underground cables.
Okay.
But so we sell these products to like electric power companies and telecom companies and things like that. In very recent years, we have been approached by electric companies to adapt our products to be used for undersea cables, because not the big ones like the one in this story, like Google and NEC have, that cross the Pacific, but because Japan has so many small islands, especially Hiroshima, Nagasaki, Ehime, that area, like the Seto Naikai area, the inland sea, it's just littered with tons and tons of islands, and so all of those have these undersea cables going to them, and so we've recently had to adapt our products to be able to kind of detect and trace those cables. So this story was really relatable to me in a lot of ways, because some of the terminology they're using, the technology they're using, but also the fact that it's got the Philippine connection. I was like, okay, these are my people.
Well, when I chose to send this one to you, I knew about the Philippine connection, but I was surprised to hear about the job connection.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a very it was a very surprising turn for me as well. So the son is working for a company that works in that area, and has to go out to this ship to do some maintenance, install software. Right.
And his father is on the ship, and he's there like all the time. He never comes home. And we find out from the flashback that his father was like in the military before, and expected his son to be in the military too. And his son didn't want to do that. And so there's kind of a breakdown there on the expectations. And yeah, I mean, his father is just like doing janitor work or something on the ship. He's not like a high-tech person.
Right. So, but they do hint at the fact that he was at one point in charge of, running the machines that sort of, that check the tension on the cables and things like that. And so this is where I think it's a really masterful bit of storytelling, because there's a part where he's talking about giving them these digital tension meters that can, show exactly, how many newtons of tension are on the cable. And the father says, no, keep the dials. And he wants to keep these, so it's a little, basically a needle that can point to the rise in tension on something, right? And so they can tell if their hook has hit like a rock, it will suddenly spike. But if it hits a cable, it will gradually lift the needle. And so this is their old method of measuring the tension on the cables. And the son is trying to introduce new technology. On the surface, that's what the story is telling. But later on, and I might be blowing a bit of the ending here, but I guess there isn't really an ending. But
it's more of a situation than a story, I think.
Yeah, right, exactly. So, but the author does allude to the fact that the father has now been reassigned because he has memory issues. And so the fact that he keeps talking about the old ways, and he talks about, even the old ways of doing this, running this ship, you realize that to somebody whose memory is fading, the past is infinitely more valuable, because it's a limited resource for them, right? It's a resource that's slowly disappearing. And so,
yeah, well, and I think that people have in that situation, what's happening now, they tend to forget, but the old memories kind of stick around more, and they'll start to acting like they think it's 50 years ago or something.
Right. There's that as well. So the whole thing about memory and past becomes much more precious to somebody in that situation. And then you have the son who's more about, the practicality of it. Look, we've got to move on as a, society. You're using old technology. And so there's a whole there's layers of metaphor there.
Mm-hmm.
The son went his own path, and then the father is kind of trying to prove that his old way is still good. In the same way, he's trying to show that he still has value as a worker on this ship, because he could have retired and been an admiral, like they said, but instead he wants to keep working on this ship. So he's trying to show his value. And as the kind of medium, the guy between them is saying, your father's not wrong. This is a really good method, because what we're doing is such a simple, crude process. We just throw a hook down and catch a cable. And so you don't need to gussy it up by putting all this high-tech, sensors on it. But at the same time, that's the way that the world is moving towards, and the old man's way is outdated. So I just think there's so many layers here of the story, expertly told. And so, and like I said, without ever browbeating you and saying, hey, this is what you're supposed to take away from this.
Yeah. I'm looking at, I can't give you a page number, but in a little bit past halfway, there's a place in the center column where the father is like sitting in like a coffee shop or something on the ship and drinking something. And there are these two panels where we see a side view of him, but the two panels leave out kind of the middle section. And we can't, his head is not there. We see his back and his butt on the chair, and then we see his hand holding the drink and his legs under the table. I wonder, I've been thinking about that. What is she trying to say there? I think that must have some meaning, like that his head is kind of gone, or his memories are going, or...
Yeah, interesting. I never thought about there being any meaning in that. I did notice the kind of weird tangent there where your brain is trying to put them together into a single guy. And you have this weird headless dude. But I didn't think about any potential symbolism there. But yeah, there very well could be.
Yeah, I mean, think why do it otherwise? I think you could just have a single panel of a side view of him drinking. But doing it this way, it feels like there's some more meaning there.
Right. And this author also doesn't seem like she does anything by just accident or by fiat. Like it seems very well thought out ahead of time. So you're right about that, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so meticulously planned.
Yeah. So I would, and the blocking, the staging on each panel is also very meticulously planned, I think. So, it moves in and out from closer shots to longer shots to kind of establish space and, things like that. So I do think you're right that every drawing was probably quite carefully planned as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there must have been a lot of sketching ahead of time and like sort of a rough draft version of this. And I can only imagine the amount of work that went into it. A lot of it in her head probably, but
yeah, definitely.
Maybe more than a normal comic.
Yeah, I very rarely say this, but I'm a little bit jealous of this comic. I wish that I had done it because it's a lot of the things that I wanted to accomplish with comics, making something that definitely has a strong emotional feeling to it, but it also is still really, it's not totally clear what happened or what the point of the story was, but it leaves you coming away with a particular feeling. Those are all things that I kind of strive to do in my own comics, and also just playing with the format is something I love. And we haven't gotten to the art yet, but the art is very, very accomplished. Like it's beautiful. The color choices, I mean, there's really only, it's mono,
different shades of kind of navy blue.
Right. But it's just really well drawn. It's not overly complicated, so there's no busyness, because a comic of this type where you have 3 different things going on at once needs simplicity in the line.
Yeah, if it were drawn like really complex, like, or Alex Ross or something, you'd be brain overload, I think.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And so the fact that it's mostly these seascapes with a boat and some surf kind of going on it and stuff, it relaxes your brain actually a bit. And there's also parts where when it wants you to focus on a particular column, the other ones will either go dark or they'll go to like seascapes. And so I think that blend and this art style goes perfectly with what she's trying to accomplish, because it's still a very accomplished line, and it's a very pretty style, but at the same time it's not fanciful or busy. So yeah, I honestly, I mean, I feel like I'm just dumping praise on this, but it deserves it because I think it's a really, really nice book.
Yeah.
Whatever. It's not a book, but
yeah. This episode of Critiquing Comics, we got a couple of winners. The one I did with Jason and this one both were excellent. So,
well, that's good. That's good. I mean, once in a while we deserve something really nice to come our way.
Well, although I feel like compared to like 10 or 15 years ago when Mulele and I started doing this, the quality of what's sent to us has improved noticeably. I'm not sure why, but
there's always something that I like about every book that we have done that we have critiqued. So I can't think of any off the top of my head that I just didn't like at all. But this is one of the first ones where I liked almost everything about it. So, and I don't have any real criticisms of it. There's not really anything I can say bad about it, other than the fact that, like I said, the words are a little bit small, but I don't think there's any way to make that there's no way to improve that because, there's only so much space. So,
yeah. Okay, so I think I'm going to check out this LD Comics Fair. I'm thinking some of these other ones look interesting too. I might buy something, but time is running out.
Typically, the people who kind of curate these type of things, they have a certain sense, and so if you like one, you're probably going to like others as well. So, yeah, I might check it out myself.
Check the show notes for more info on the Keluarga Cable Ship Company. Follow us on Blue Sky at Decon Comics. On Facebook, we have both a page and a group. Those are linked from deconstructingcomics.com, as is our YouTube channel, where our episodes are posted every week as videos of a single image. You can comment on our episodes on YouTube or on our site, or drop us a line at mail@deconstructingcomics.com, or talk to us. Click the Leave a Voicemail link on the left sidebar of our site. Are you making a comic? Send it to us and we'll do a Critiquing Comics episode about it. The Critiquing Comics theme is from bensound.com. The music backing the promotion of our Patreon is Change by Jazar. Next week, when Mulele and I recorded it for Patreon in 2020, we didn't call it Tim Catches Up with the MCU, because Sam Raimi's Spider-Man predated the MCU and took place in a different universe. Of course, that was before No Way Home made it literally MCU adjacent. At any rate, we will present our review of Spider-Man for the first time outside of Patreon next week, while I begin a 3-week trip to the US. So till next week, this is Tim, and thanks for listening.